Hey, this is Aaron Price, the CEO of Tech United New Jersey. Very excited to welcome you to our LinkedIn Live or wherever you're watching us today. We've got a special guest in Jed Wexler. He's the executive director of Luxury Meets Cannabis, the premier conference in the New York area for the retail industry as it pertains to cannabis. Jed, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Aaron. Can't compete with that intro. I really appreciate it. I know we're both, in our way, event mavens and are excited for B2B events to happen. And thanks for having me to talk about how this everything impacts innovation and tech on your end, and it's going to do so significantly. So thanks for having me.
We're excited. Before we get into it, a few ground rules. One, we'll go 15 to 30 minutes. We'll see how things evolve. No matter where you're watching, if you have a question, drop it in the comments and we'll try to weave it in the narrative as we go. And so with that, can you first, Jed, I'm in Hoboken. I'm actually in my daughter's room in Hoboken.
Yeah.
Which maybe looks okay because I got a decent background, but there's a lot of other colorful stuff around me. But where are you actually physically situated?
We're physically now in the Berkshires. That's kind of like our year abroad situation, but we love it. And our office is based in New York and our events and typically in Hudson Yards. And so we kind of split our time, but we're tucked away, So
for those who aren't aware of LMCC, can you tell people what that conference is about?
Well, Luxury Meets Cannabis Conference is a trade event that connects, we call them crossover retailers, media and investors to leading CBD hemp and cannabis related brands in the space. And we've done it since 2018. And we really focus on the growing categories, skincare, beauty, wellness, especially food and beverage now, pet care, culinary fits in there. So from 2018, when we had 100 people and 4 or 5 brands, now we had 1,000 attendees and 30 brands and 200 applications for those 30 brand spaces. And it's just exploded into what we have always felt was a consumer products category.
Huge opportunity, obviously, in this space. I think you and I have shared a headline speaker in Bobby Brown, who
that's right.
I'm sorry to tell you is a New Jersey resident, but we're glad she could cross the river for you. But let's start with what is, there's obviously, when you talk about the smoky element here, but there are some misconceptions about what this is. Let's start with setting the ground rules of what this industry is and what it isn't.
Well, it's a lot of things, and so for so long, cannabis, the plant, the smoky has been federally illegal. It's still kind of it is, but a lot of states have legalized it, but so many things touch the plant, one of which is CBD, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of, and it's non-psychoactive. We call it the non-psychoactive cousin of cannabis. It doesn't get you high, and it's a cannabidiol, short for cannabidiol, and it's one of 100 cannabinoids. It's in the plant, and they have amazing properties, and so it's really fitting for since 2018. The Farm Bill passed, which criminalized a lot of hemp-based products, especially if they didn't have THC in it. And so enter this explosion of skincare brands, like you would see at Neiman Marcus, who attend our event, and you'd see at lots of retailers. Now you're seeing it at CVS, you're seeing it at Sprouts locations, at Wegmans, at Harrods in London. So there's this huge global product category. And so what's so fascinating is that these companies have been humming along, and Bobby Brown launched a CBD line. You have, a lot of big players, CPG, consumer packaged goods players, and food and beverage players jumping in, like the L'Oreals, like a little bit of Unilever, and then you have Molson Coors. So, but it's founded on this independent group of visionaries that really stuck to it. And so now it's looking like, New Jersey is now legal. We're not experts on the bill, but what it is, it legalizes some possession, legalizes some retail, consumer retail, And most importantly, which we integrate into everything we do, is that it decriminalizes cannabis. So, which obviously to most, and it should be, that it's impacted Black and BIPOC owned businesses and people disproportionately. And so what this does, how it's integrated into the business meets impact piece meets CPG, we see it as honestly the biggest since the internet .com boom, the biggest business, retail, and civic opportunity of our lifetime. And so
I want to get into some of that opportunity, but I want to make sure we're clear on like
a big leap,
THC versus CBD. You know, like we had a brand launch a CBD infused drink at Propelify 2 years ago, right? There was a lot of joking about like, oh, I'm getting really high right now. Like, I want to get really clear on what ingredients.
This first wave of products, like separate from dispensaries, you know, has been picked up since we started in 2018. We really, you know, pushed to get them to come, and there was a lot of resistance. And then the education started to happen, as with any new product. And so it's non-psychoactive, CBD, and a lot of hemp-based products, and it doesn't get you high. And so that's why these products connected to the plant have generated this kind of renaissance of consumer products across so many categories. And you know, what decriminalizing or legalizing cannabis, it just opens up the world even more, because there are companies out there that are now partnering with growers who want to enter mainstream retail when it's ready. And so by, you know, and it's, you know, and vice versa, dispensaries will now become like these little, like wine shops or mini markets with, you know, beverages and edibles and, you know, and what's interesting, the pandemic has ironically turbocharged this category because it's founded on wellness. And the thing that's so great, everybody talks about the hype about CBD, there's 8 million CBD lines. But what it's done is like, it's become an entry point for everyone, from my dad who uses it for his many ailments. That's part of my personal entry point into it. And it's the entry point into clean, plant-based wellness and well-being, and that industry, which is a $1 trillion global industry. So it's like, it's all kind of like connected. And so, you know, anytime a law loosens up, you know, a whole new slew of incredible entrepreneurs who are Black, BIPOC, can hopefully now apply their incredible innovation to kind of get into the business, you know. So a lot of work has to be done there. So,
and so we're, you know, let's get into the retail opportunity and the industry opportunity in general. But basically, we're saying THC, CBD, different elements, and we're talking primarily about products here with CBD and with, I think you told me, 0.3% or less THC. Is that right?
Right, exactly. And
which is the ingredient that actually does get some, you know, the psychoactive element.
Right, as that THC content goes up, but now you're seeing products in legal states that combine the two, and there's like in very small increments, you know. It's like, and so the kind of exhibitors we've had up to this point are skincare, beauty, you know, all the ones that I've mentioned, you know, athlete recovery. It's like, it's all that stuff is, despite, you know, not, you know, a little, you know, vagueness federally, is like, has been pushing through at, you know, big retailers. I mean, Martha Stewart just launched CB edibles line at Vitamin Shop.
Yeah.
You know,
so talk about like a major cultural shift, right? What are you seeing? Is there any data that you can sort? And I know this isn't necessarily your expertise, that talks about the benefits of CBD, and then we're going to get right into like this $1 trillion opportunity.
I think, you know, there is a lot of data. I mean, you can find it in a lot of different places. That's data driven, study driven, and also anecdotal, which is nothing to scoff at. You know, I took this, I committed to this, I got better. And so, you know, the data has shown that it's an anti-inflammatory in some senses. Some cannabinoids are better for sleep, better for circulation, better for antiviral, you know, so we were just scratching the surface of the effectiveness and formulations. That's why.
You know, it's interesting. George was longtime Propelify, we call leadership committee member, mentions his 89-year-old grandmother or in-law, references I think he wrote CDC, but I think he meant CBD for health as an indicator for me of it being mainstream. When did you launch your conference, and what have you seen just in the cultural shift of acceptance versus being this sort of smoking underground thing and now being, you know, Vitamin Shop and Martha Stewart?
Yeah, it's a great question, because 2018, a little before that, we started to see like this professionalization, modernization of the branding and packaging and how things were presented. And it was getting away from smoky bong, you know, that culture, although that will always be here, but that's kind of not what we're really talking about. And, you know, we had the founder of Lord Jones in 2018. And then later that year, she sold her company for $200+ million. And we couldn't get a single big retailer to come.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and when people were writing about our 2018 event, big media was still using the puns. Like, come on, you're going to get higher margins. It's like the place, it's the high, you know, it's where luxury is at its highest, you know, LOL, you know, and pretty soon they're investors, you know, venture firms, big retail, big consumer groups are like, wow, this is going to be big.
So do you think it's a mistake for the entrepreneurs watching?
Yeah.
Do you think it's a mistake to market around some of those, you know, those phrases?
Well, there's best practices.
And by the way, I want to mention that when this was signed into law, the governor's tweet said something about "I'll be blunt:"
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, so
marijuana illegal.
Yeah, I mean, so that's what some people are still doing, but it kind of diminishes the hard work that a lot of cultivators and growers have been beating their heads in, and the social impact organizations that have like been grinding it out to get to the table, you know? And so I think, I think in terms of marketing, it's like anything else. Like, there's hundreds of brands out there that do a good job of disclaiming, you know, it's like, this is not FDA approved, XYZ, but here's
we just had a question from Tanya in our community about that very issue, right? The FDA does not allow claims. She asked, how do you get the word out? Do you have any guidance for people who are looking to market their brands on the best way to do it?
Actually, you know, what we love, like, because Facebook/Instagram and some Google ads, they have since the beginning have had inconsistent policies around paid ads, paid social. It's driven everybody insane. It's like you can show lots of other things, as we know, that are very provocative, but you know, they don't have a set policy, so it's really hard to grow D2C brand in the space unless you wipe all of the mentions of CBD. It's loosening, but I've seen plenty of great big CBD brands, you know, now advertising, but you have to get whitelisted. It's inconsistent, but LinkedIn has not had those restrictions. We run paid campaigns on LinkedIn with impunity, and it's helped grow our business.
Yeah. We've got a question from Marvin that I'm actually not so clear on. So I'm going to bring it up, Marvin, but maybe you can clarify in the comments. As for scratching the surface, when do you think this industry maturing, and when do you see this industry maturing in relation to different products being produced? I don't think I fully follow that. Maybe you do.
Well, all the products are being produced now. You know, it's just a matter, I think this topicals, which is like skincare, beauty, wellness, has kind of led the way, like just pushed ahead. But everything is being made. You have CBD pet brands, you have CBD culinary brands. The biggest category, one of the biggest categories we see is the food and beverage, infused beverages, anything, that you can ingest, because this pandemic plus new customers, they don't want to smoke, because for a lot of reasons, you know, it's uncomfortable, or it's like not in your, like, it's not a culture fit, so
Yeah.
they're all being produced now, and the companies are really, entrepreneurs are positioning. We talk about this a lot, Aaron. It's like, in a situation like this, you have to be planning, putting the pieces together, because right now it feels that people are standing on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Right? But if there's going to be a tipping point moment that we talk about, where literally the same day everybody's going to get the memo, all the dots are going to connect, and every single vendor, contractor, venue, everything in the world is going to be booked, and everybody's going to want a place to put their money. People are going to, and everything's tracking for things that come not just back to baseline, but roaring back, like the things that we haven't seen in decades.
Agreed. And I want to talk about how that affects even our day-to-day events business that we both share. But for there are a lot of people, who are on the sidelines looking at this, thinking, okay, $1 trillion opportunity, massive industry that's unfolding here. I think some buy into the civic component here.
Right.
How do you expect that those people, or how do you suggest that those people get involved? And then what is the unique opportunity in New Jersey right now?
Well, I think the thing that's wonderful about New Jersey is that we've also talked about this.
Is there just one thing, Jed?
No. It's always 1,000 little things you do as an entrepreneur, right?
I'm just kidding. I was talking about Jersey, but keep going. I didn't mean to throw you off here.
No.
We'll get to your question in a minute.
Is that this kind of, even if you're a CBD plant-based brand or a hemp-based brand, you can work a little bit more free in New Jersey because of this. If, and then just the fact that dispensaries are going to open up, like next to a wine shop or wherever it is, it normalizes it. And the money from what we've seen in states that legalize it, it moves the needle on these products that are already in motion.
Yeah.
And that is a very hard business. I have a lot of respect for dispensaries and what they do,
Yeah.
So you have venture capital coming in, you have larger mainstream retailers going, let me see what's going on here. And then you have this entrepreneurship and innovation boom. It's like, where did everybody go when the dot-com boom was starting? You had everybody just, take their expertise into it. And so this is what's happening. And now we can have a fresh new entrepreneurship and innovation conversation around all of this.
Yeah.
It's like a shot in the arm vaccine pun, LOL. It's like, and it's an opportunity for all the companies that you work with, the tech innovators and investors, to look at these companies that need their services.
Do you think they should be thinking about the B2B logistics side of things, a B2C potential brand, the infrastructure and logistics around it? I'm curious, where do you think the biggest opportunity is, and where's there the biggest void at the moment?
I think it's in talent. It's like, whatever you're passionate about, whatever you're doing now. I'm biased because we dropped everything in 2018 and have not looked back since. My team and my partner and I think it's talent. It's like, what you're doing now, what you love to do now. Take a look at this market, because they're hiring. They need professional expertise. You have CEOs coming from big consumer packaged goods companies into companies that need to scale and grow, or, there's a lot of movement.
Yeah. We have a question from Brady, who asked, what's the best resource for retail business owners to learn more about product trends? I have to say that your conference is one of the major places that
Thank you.
could happen.
Yes, we have our own newsletter, and so we curate from hundreds of brands, and we send out product roundups. But it depends what product you're interested in. Like, is it beauty? Is it skincare? Is it pet? It really depends what you're going into, I think. But I think retail trends, if you're looking at it, taking a step back and looking at it like a traditional retail category, it's like, where do you get your retail trends?
Yeah.
There's a lot of different outlets that, but what I can do is, there's Seven Space, which is spelled SVN Space. They're a website for and media company. Great. It's www.svnspace.com. You'll learn a ton about CBD there. They're one of our partners, our media partners. If you're looking at strains and actual hardcore cannabis market, Leafly is a great site, and you'll learn a lot about the law there too, the New Jersey law and other laws. It's leafly.com, and they do a great job of distilling the most recent New Jersey law, so you don't have to slog through 9,000 pages.
Also worth highlighting the I'll reiterate your site, luxurymeetscannabis.com. We've got that scrolling across the bottom now. I think we're going to pull up some of the others you just mentioned it momentarily.
Yeah.
As far as the timing, right? I've personally been an entrepreneur where, and now we have some of those other URLs across the bottom, or they'll be back in a minute. It might have been a typo in there. But when I've been involved in industries where the idea was right and the time was wrong. My first business was in 1998, which was comparable to what seamless.com is today, and the timing was a little off. And so is this the time? Is now the time that people should say, you know what, the infrastructure's there, the political will is there, cultural elements are in place, like now is the time to jump into this? Or do you think it's super early, give it a few years to accelerate?
I think it was super early 5 years ago, and I think I'm going to say yes to all, like always, for that now, because especially now that people are just sitting back and not pulling a lot of triggers on a lot of things, like I would do it right away, but in an authentic way.
Yeah. So we've only got a few more minutes before we got to wrap, but let's switch gears for a moment. And for those still watching, I'd love to get your feedback on this topic about the in-person event space, because Jed and I both run lots of in-person events and spend time one-on-one talking about when we think this industry is coming back. And so I'm curious, what both, I know you have some good stats on when it's believed that the events industry is coming back. I'm curious of your own personal view of when you think you'll be comfortable and the world will be comfortable for you to get back in person. My
sense is that summer, if vaccines go according to plan, summer people will start to get a lot of confidence back. And then B2B events, as you know, they're a lot different. They're not concerts. Our goal is not to, slam people together. It's to create personal interactions and a delight when people walk into your event. And when you're doing business with someone, that in-person trust building and rapport, that energy you exchange is unique. And so I think if you're booking a B2B event and you're careful with your safety protocols, which will be even more advanced, you can get some serious attendees who are going to make appointments, and actually, if you're serious, you'll come, like I'd rather have 100 serious buyers and media attend who are all doing business transacting rather than 1,000, 900 of which are like, that was cool. See ya. And so, and you do these huge events. It's like you're an event conference maven like myself, and it's going to come back, and it's going to come roaring back. It's actually our job to kind of push the brakes a little bit, just to have people not get overexcited, and not be careful, So
we've been planning, and I still anticipate an entirely digital 2021. I wouldn't be surprised if over the summer there are large music festivals, and that if at those events there's not big outbreaks, that becomes the shift where everyone starts feeling more comfortable. But I'm not convinced there won't be large outbreaks. I mean, I think people forget you're not immune with the vaccine. You could still, there's a low chance you could still transmit. You could still get the, get the virus. But I wouldn't be surprised if, our Propelify event, where people can certainly expect to hear more on the topic, excuse me, of the cannabis industry, likely in partnership with Jed in some capacity, and LMCC. We're planning for it to be digital. I'd love to make it happen in some capacity in person, but at the moment, it's not just whether it's possible. Then there's all the derivative function about like, well, is it possible with enough advance notice that we can actually plan for it and create the infrastructure required, as you know, to make that actually happen and be successful?
And you do have to be nimble. Like if a speaker of ours feels more comfortable being virtual, we'll accommodate that. We're in an interesting place where you have to be very nimble. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
What are you hearing from, one of the things we've struggled with, obviously attendee engagements is challenging, sponsor engagement and sales has been challenging. How have you shifted? Many of the business owners that we work with have to move to, obviously in a digital capacity. Many of them were already doing that because of the nature of our community. How have you shifted in the event space to continue to drive value without being able to bring people together in person?
Well, I mean, having an event is kind of unique. So we actually, there's a lot of digital fatigue going on. So I think you'll start seeing the talks, unlike this one, get shorter and shorter and shorter. This one's getting longer, sorry. But, we like to actually stay dark until we have something phenomenal to say or share. Instead of doing a slow drip, I feel like we're in this new era. Content marketing is back. Lead acquisition is back, but I think, I think it's with our newsletter, it's really some light education.
Yeah.
To our very, very core audience who's going to attend, what they need to know.
How has the pandemic changed the industry, the CBD industry?
Well, I think what I've seen is some of the companies we work with are busier than ever. Their D2C business busier than ever because it taps into well-being and wellness, and people are there's data for this that people are buying more of that stuff to create a wellness ritual.
Yeah.
And so anxiety, sleep. So it's had a positive effect. And since cannabis has been outlined as essential businesses in a lot of states, it's it's booming.
Yeah. It's exciting times. It's definitely something that, do you expect that New York will legalize in the near future?
Being a New Yorker, nothing is a straight line. As long as I've grown up there, lived there, whatever people say, I would just kind of ignore until you wake up one day and it's signed into law and it's actually in motion. I know that's cynical, but that's why, we're actually now we're looking. It makes sense for us to look at New Jersey potentially for our event. We have to stay open to that. I have a quick question for you. Is what is your vision for a safe event? Your timing, because you do bigger events than anyone in the region. So
well, this year, I think there could be something interesting with a hybrid model. In fact, I think this could be interesting for the foreseeable long-term future, but especially this year, a hybrid model with distributed events throughout the state for our Propelify event, so that we host it online, we can share content across the region, really across the world, but that there are opportunities to network and maybe for some more VIP type experiences in person, and especially in a place like New Jersey where we're interested in we want to attract people from all over the world. But if they don't feel comfortable because of safety this year, coming to say, Hoboken, the Hoboken area for the Propelify Innovation Festival, they could still participate potentially and even attend a networking viewing event in their region, which I think could be an interesting way to do it, where there's 50 to 200 people in a restaurant and it's safe and they're more comfortable going to a place like that locally. For the longer term, I still think that's an interesting thing for people who may not want to be at the event for the entire day, but they can do a remote experience. We can bring it, I could expect to play, an experience where speakers are brought in virtually as well as some that are in person, that we're taking comments like we're doing here virtually, and some that are.
I love that.
And there's a lot more investment in the production of the show, so to speak.
Right.
I think in many ways we are in the entertainment business because we have to engage our audiences.
Mm-hmm.
We happen to be using business content to do it, but it's about creating an engaging experience. And whether that happens in person because you can smell, touch, and feel it, or it's online. But like, it's very hard, as everyone can relate, to sit there and watch something. You know, we just hit the 30-minute mark. As fantastic as this has been, it's hard for people.
This is the 50,000th like video talk they've seen. You know,
that's
but I
right.
love what you're saying about these smaller, impactful events. And you know, I just read a survey that said people, the first B2B events, people are going to be very willing to drive to. So what's our 100-mile radius, right? Or 200-mile radius.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, George brought up an interesting point. Virtual session moderators will be in high demand. That's an interesting. I mean, there's a lot of industries that have changed dramatically here.
Yeah.
I think we're just scratching the surface on the tools that are available. You know, we're using StreamYard for this. I think as great as it is, I think it has a long. I think it's in its infancy. I think Hopin, which is the other tool we use, is in its infancy.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree. Yeah.
I think there's I mean, in fact, I'm relatively dissatisfied with both of them, and they're both market leaders in the space. You know, there's a long way to go in driving engagement, and I mean, we can have a whole different conversation about that, but it's much more about interactivity, and these are one-way experiences.
But overall, events like ours, they're curated, they're focused, they're not trying to be all things to all people, and I think that's part of the why you're a leader in the space, and we've captured market, because these big trade show groups are scrambling. You know, we have a lot of friends there, but now they're partnering together, but they have tremendous expertise in putting on big, safe events. So I think they're going to kind of fertilize that territory for us, thankfully. And then, you know, we can learn some things from them. So.
I think people forget that events have a very high opportunity cost. There's the travel time to get there. There's the time being in the seat. There's the time to get home. Like, you can easily lose a half a day or a full day going to a 1-hour event. And certainly of productivity, whether it's not your actual full day of time. So I'm a very big believer in having focused activities. So, you know, I'm very proud of what we've done, you know, in that regard, right? We've broken apart the idea of thought. If you think about what an event is, both of us have something similar here. You go into a space, there is thought leadership, which is the content that happens on stage, and then there's networking that happens naturally in the room. And then it's our job to create a culture where that networking happens, you know, even more effectively, and we get the right people to bounce into one another.
Create a concrete business result for people who are participating.
That's right. But when you do it online, just like this, if people are using Zoom, the idea that the event creates networking is a false narrative, right? We're not putting people in a room where they're naturally bumping into others and creating that networking. So we've separated the two activities. Jasmine, who's behind the scenes here, set up a phenomenal experience in a tool that we use called Brella, which is an AI matchmaking tool to set up 15-minute one-on-one meetings. So we separate out the experiences of thought leadership like this from networking, so that it's a more effective use of time. I think it's been fantastic. I can sit home or at an office and network for 2 hours and then get right back to work without any of the travel or any of the distraction. And so I think that the long-term future will include that. I don't think we're going back to, at least our organization is not going back to like events for, you know, in-person events as the answer to everything. I think there's certainly a desire for people to get back to that kind of human connection, but I think we got to be careful about the real cost for organizations like ours to produce them, and the very high opportunity cost of people to attend them. It's got to be worthwhile. Yeah,
it's been eye-opening, and I agree. And you know, you've been a leader in this space, you know, so it's great to see.
Well, it's been great to get to know you over the last couple of years. It's nice to see you. You know, this is a great example where we didn't have to do much travel, and we can be several hours apart. So it's great to make this work. There's so much opportunity in the region, in particular New Jersey right now. And so for those of you who are interested in this space, check out the Luxury Meets Cannabis Conference. Jed does a fantastic job there. Like I said, you can expect more content like this from us, especially at Propelify, perhaps at his own event that may or may not happen in New Jersey. We'll see. But I really appreciate being with you today, Jed. Hopefully people learned a lot, and I'm sure they'll hear from us again soon. We do a lot of high-fiving on the show. So on the count of three, you can do the high-five of the camera. 1, 2, 3, boom.
Man.
There you go. And that's it. We'll talk to you soon.
Any questions offline, Aaron can send me, and then they can respond. You know, I'm available. So
absolutely. Thanks for being with us, Jed. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Jasmine. I appreciate it. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.